Hello, hello, YouTube family. What is up? What is up? Welcome to Wyckoff Sundays, episode 18, I believe it should be. Let's check. Actually, I need to double check here. I feel like this. Yes. No, sorry. We already did episode 18. I thought so. We are on Wyckoff Sundays, episode 19. All right. So today we're going to be obviously going into what happened during NFP week. We saw some really interesting moves, definitely play out that we had been waiting for a while as well. I think some people in the group definitely caught it, right? And so we're going to go into this next reaccumulation as well. Appreciate you, Bam. Yes, my birthday was great. And thank you. Yes, just got the haircut. Definitely was long overdue. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the dollar, right? So DXY last week has seen a significant push to the upside. As you guys know, we've been talking about this for obviously a really, really long time. Initially we did miss, the bottom here because we were thinking that we might still see one more sweep. But as we started to see price trade away, we spoke about last week that we were thinking obviously that eventually we were going to have a full-on distribution happen the way that it did here. And after we have that distribution, to go ahead and see price get below the low of that distribution and then continue to go higher, right? This push to the downside was pretty good, right? We did mention we didn't really like the wick here too much on the 4-hour. So we were kind of thinking maybe we could see one more, especially because we hadn't really fully engulfed yet. But obviously, if we look at what happened from that moment onwards, right, that did end up being the bottom there for, dollar, right? So right here was where Wyckoff Sundays was, right here. And this onward was the rest of the week, right? So obviously after we started to see price engulf, after we started to see price get up and above previous highs, I mean, it was pretty clear to just see this continue to head to the upside, right? So here, this opportunity here on Monday was a good one, right? And there was also this one here on Tuesday that also gave really, really good entries for a lot of currencies, right? And that ended up being the top/bottom for the rest of the week, right? And so, yeah, so we definitely did see, I mean, again, guys, right? We always talk about it. There's two main types of reaccumulation, right? The first type is where, we have the distribution, just like this one. And then we end up sweeping the low of that distribution, right? So exactly like we see here, right? Like, essentially big push to the downside. How many times did we touch this level, right? We already have it all circled here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. We end up seeing the market kind of touching the same area. And then suddenly out of nowhere, again, big down move right here, right? So that should have been a really big indication, obviously, that there is some potential for this to be a bottom. And for us to just continue the overall trend that we have been on, right? Like I said, initially on Wyckoff Sundays last week, we did want to see just one more low because we hadn't yet engulfed, right? So right here, we wanted to see, okay, can we open, dive down, and then continue? But that's not how it happened, right? Instead, we ended up engulfing pretty much instantly, retracing back into that manipulation, right? And ever since then, it was just pretty simple order flow for the rest of the week, right? This push to the downside here, right? So if we can kind of just point out the order flow here, right? This push to the downside there, tapping back into that level, and then we end up having this, sweep here, right? New high, we come back down into that level, and that's what ended up being the base for us to, pretty much have NFP just fly, right? Obviously, I think the main thing that really made NFP, look like it was probably going to go to the upside was these relatively equal highs that were sitting at this level right here, right? So we can see that from this high here, we ended up having price tap back into that a bunch of times, right? Right here, we tapped into it again, right? And then NFP really just attacked that liquidity to the upside, right? So the order flow was really good, to be honest, for the week, right? We definitely did see from this moment onwards, manipulation, manipulation, and manipulation here as well. We can see that right before NFP, we just barely swept below this previous low right here, right? So this is really what we want to see for order flow wise, right? It's pretty much perfect, right? Signs of manipulation, create a new high. Signs of manipulation, create a new high. Signs of manipulation, create a new high, right? Pretty textbook order flow, from this bottom here that we had, right? So dollar was great, right? I feel like that gave a pretty good opportunity there. Obviously we didn't get a big enough. Big enough. We didn't get a big retracement the way that we kind of wanted back into this accumulation here. But, again, the order flow continuing the way it did definitely, was very, very clean to see price continue from, right? So yeah, definitely something that I would have had to adjust to, right? Because again, like I said here, we were kind of looking for one more sweep and then to head to the upside. But instead, again, like we said, we did end up just holding that level, right? After seeing the engulfment and the manipulation here, right? You can see obviously how the plan probably changed from Tuesday and Monday onwards, right? Just to see, dollar continue to head to the upside was obviously the play, right? And so we ended up, yeah, we were thinking that we ended up mostly looking for Euro USD for this play, right? So let's go ahead and tap into EU here. So first currency pair was Euro USD, right? Definitely, I would say I liked the way that this one looked, right? We spoke about the high for the potential reaccumulation here. Sorry, redistribution. If it will, where is it here? Yes, right here. Okay, let's see.
Euro USD since the moment that we had this Wyckoff Sunday 2 weeks ago, that last week, and then now we just kind of consolidated all week here, right? Until finally now we're starting to get above. So I think that this might be the beginning of also a redistribution, right? So maybe this here ends up being like an accumulation, and then we end up making our way higher to then maybe redistribute and head.
So again, as we said there, right, we were kind of looking at the potential for this zone here to really be that accumulation, right? For us to just get above that accumulation, right? And then from there, start to see this go to the downside, right? Just like with dollar. Now, again, when Wyckoff Sundays happened, we hadn't yet engulfed this push to the upside. So we obviously could have had, another push higher. But when we see how the market ended up reacting after that, right, kind of giving like, again, after that, completely engulfing on the Sunday, right, creating a new institutional candle here, on the Monday, right, during a London session. And then New York session, we ended up having a beautiful retracement back into that level, right, to just continue it, right? So again, textbook redistribution, right? We have an accumulation, we sweep the high of that accumulation, and then we start to see the market just absolutely reverse and head to the downside, right? So really beautiful redistribution example, right? For the sells here on Euro USD. Now, when it came to, obviously, again, last week we were kind of similar to with dollar. We were thinking, all right, maybe we end up getting one more sweep. But guys, after seeing that engulfment, after seeing that beautiful institutional candle there at the top, once we came onto the live session on Tuesday, we were thinking sells for Euro USD from this level over here, right? So lower time frame wise, obviously, we tap back into the London session price action with a good manipulation here as well. We can see liquidity here, manipulate that liquidity, right? Breakdown, retracement, and then we ended up selling off really beautifully from there, right? Price tap back into that level twice here, right? But definitely, again, still holding the order flow, right? As a whole, right? Like I believe this is Wednesday here. No, Thursday. Yeah, so on Thursday, we end up kind of, creating this high, and NFP ends up coming back into that high, but we never break it, right? We don't break it. We end up holding that level there. So order flow ended up continuing to the downside there. So even just taking trades like inside of here or something like that would have been potentially a good, move. Or, again, I would say probably the cleanest one was on Tuesday for this type 1 setup, right? So this being the higher time frame point of interest, right? This being us getting back in to mitigate that with manipulation. We break down, we mitigate the mitigation, right? Like that. And so then that would end up looking like a type 1 setup to me, right? So really, really beautiful stuff there on Euro USD. And honestly, even with GU, this also gave a pretty good one. Although personally, again, it would have been better for me to have seen another high here from this level. But obviously the market just ended up respecting this manipulation here. So what we can see is we kind of had this big buildup of highs here from there to there, right? So like this high, this high, this high, this high, this high, all holding until we have this one candle, right? So we can see this candle opens right here, right? Takes every piece of internal liquidity possible, right? Internal liquidity here, here, all the way down, right? All with one move, it was all taken, right? So seeing that come up, seeing that engulf, I mean, from that point forward, again, the structure shifting, right? We're starting to see the trend just slowly, head in our favor, right? And then the market ends up, again, having a nice sell-off. So all these could have been some good day trading opportunities, right? We do see that just before NFP, we decided to retest this level, but we didn't even break the high, right? Oh, no, actually, sorry, we did here. My fault, my fault. Yeah, so GU did break this internal high again, right? Ended up holding this initial zone here, where again, we can see massive buy up from here all the way up, right? Definitely manipulation. We could see all these highs holding, right? These highs holding over here as well, right? So all of those taken with one swift move to the upside. And that's where we end up holding, right? Here, this initial zone that I was looking at on Tuesday didn't end up holding. Again, we do see that just barely before NFP, price just takes it, just making it difficult to stay in the trade, right? Just retesting some of those weak-handed sellers, right? But great sell-off there from GU as well, right? Huge push down. I do think that for this move, NU was also really, really clean. I know Adam caught this trade initially for NU. And we can see here, that there was some pretty good signs that this could potentially continue to the downside as well. Obviously, if you had the same bias for dollar to the upside, the way that we've been having for a while now, right? And so we could see again, all these highs here, right? All these highs here, right? Huge buy up, right? We end up creating a new lower low, and then the market retraces back into that level just before NFP. So we can see here that, basically on the Friday of NFP, we end up seeing the market retrace all the way back up to here, right? Create beautiful institutional candles, right? Really nice pushes to the upside right there. And then this order flow here is really our biggest opportunity, right? So anywhere basically after, this 15-minute trap candle, so like right when that 15-minute trap candle happens, or like inside of these levels here, are beautiful opportunities for shorts, on this, right? And again, this is exactly what we want to see, right? It's like we have this big buy to sell motion, right? But again, as we understand, like this buy to sell motion doesn't just happen, like that, right? There's obviously on the lower time frame going to have very slow market structure shifts, right? We're going to have the market retracing back into levels like this, right? Really showing its hand that we can really become bearish before the news event even comes out, right? So that's exactly how we want to see this, right? On the bigger time frame, it looks like we just went up and came right back down, right? But when we go up like this and we manipulate highs like this and we're getting back into extreme areas, right? We want to go ahead and see, okay, how does the structure start to shift, in our favor for this, right? And then we start to, continue down from there, right? This is okay, I was like, what is this wick? Okay. But yeah, so big buy to sell motion, right? Instead of just seeing like, a massive sell-off, again, we actually do see the market structure shift that we want to see on these lower time frames, right? So basically, this was a pretty big potential for a type 3 potential entry model, with this structure that happened here after having seen price, buy up the way it did, right, from here to here, getting back into this extreme area of previous manipulation, right? We do see that the market did respect that level right there pretty nicely, right? So I would say out of everything, to be honest, like NU was probably the best setup for just before NFP compared to anything else, because of the way that we held this high, because of the way that the market structure shifted on this lower time frame. NZD USD was definitely the best last week, right? Cool. So what else did we go into last week? So yeah, that's most of the currencies, to be honest. I mean, overall, pretty much we're not gonna, just do it over and over again in terms of saying the same thing. Because again, even here with AU, right? Same thing, right? Highs were being created, right? They ended up getting taken, and I believe it just continued to the downside from there, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, there we go, right? So, just like we were saying there, right? Kind of having all this liquidity build up here, price very quickly buys up, sells off, we engulf. This right here is obviously going to be the best entry opportunities. Everything inside of this circle is going to make the most sense to see that sell off continue, right? So again, it's once again, just like with your USD, it's an accumulation here, right? That turns into a distribution here as we take out the highs of the accumulation, right? So beautiful redistribution example. Once again, like honestly, across the board in the market was really, really good this week. Okay. So here is gold as well, right? So gold, we were looking for longs from this level, right? Gold was the one thing that obviously, didn't really play out for us, right? We did end up having, to be honest, like really, really good buys, anyways from this level, right? So, I know a lot of people in the chats, caught buys from this level here, right? As we kind of saw this huge institutional down move happen, that engulfed to the upside. We did end up seeing some people kind of catch the order flow on the way up here. So that gave a pretty decent move, right? That initial reaction from the zone that we called out on Wyckoff Sundays was about 870 pips, right, from this zone. And it gave another opportunity here too, right? Definitely not as easy, but again, this is also about an 890 pip move. And then we end up just seeing obviously the way how the market sells off is again pretty clean order flow wise, right? We have this fast buy up that again engulfs right back down, and then we also get this institutional candle right here trading back into that level, right, and coming right back down. So really we can kind of see how this order flow has now presented, right? We have these highs over here, price swept those highs, engulfed back down, right? Came up into that level, engulfed back down, came up into this level, engulfed back down, right? And so on and so forth until finally we had this price action right here on gold that was honestly very, very clean before NFP, right? I'm pretty sure a lot of people actually caught this as well, caught this move on gold to the downside, which is awesome. But yeah, so now that we're kind of in this place here, I mean, actually, we'll talk about what we can see in a little bit, because this is obviously a very key level that we've been talking about for a while on gold. So we'll definitely tap into that in a little bit as well, right? And then silver, same idea, right? There were definitely some good, buy opportunities, just like with gold, right? Up in here, right? And then obviously after this internal sweep as well, kind of gave a pretty good move up with some decent, pips there to potentially catch. But obviously it was not the long-term move. And we can see how, again, the manipulations really do appear very clearly last week, right? Big buy to the upside there, right? Big buy to the upside here, right? Big buy to the upside here, right? All of these zones here, again, like giving the ideas that, hey, maybe this can actually be manipulation to the upside as we just continue to do that over and over again, right? And obviously this final one was just before NFP news event came out, right? So huge sells there on gold and on silver, right? And we'll talk about what maybe we can see for the coming week in a bit here, right? So let's talk about indices now, and then we'll talk about crypto, and then we'll get into what we can see for the week. So indices. With indices, I believe we were just continuing to look for bullishness. There was really nothing here at Wyckoff Sundays that was going to give us any indication of bearishness. Again, the zones there, we obviously were already at a very high point here for indices. So let's take a look at how the week went. Right, so I believe we started the week over here, right? It was on Monday the 1st. Yeah, so price opened up here on the weekend. Oh, no. Where's the opening? Here it is, right here. So yeah, so price opened up, somewhere around here. And again, we just kind of created a low, new high. We ended up sweeping that there and continuing to go up. I mean, not really too much here in terms of, real opportunities. I didn't really see a clear zone here at the bottom because, again, we can see, like, even on the 30-minute, like, this push to the downside here is just a huge wick. I higher time frame wise as well. It's just a big wick. So I didn't really like the zone here to buy from. And either way, we didn't even retrace. We never got back into that level. We kind of just got into, this wick here, right? So I didn't really see too much here from US 30. Very interesting what we did at the end of the week, right? So we'll see. We'll talk about that in a little bit. S&P also saw a very significant sell-off at the end of the week. I mean, everything did. Nothing was safe from NFP this week. Everything just absolutely dumped to the downside, right? Even indices. So yeah, just huge sell-offs. And hopefully, again, like we can maybe get some opportunities this coming week from these sell-offs, all right? But yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, we didn't really talk about it too much on Wyckoff Sundays, episode 18, because again, if we look here at Dow Jones at the time, there's really nothing here to indicate that we're going to get a big sell-off, right? We were just kind of taking kind of a wait and see approach with indices, especially with it being at such a high point, all right? Now, finally, we're going to talk about crypto, right? BTC, okay? Because BTC is definitely a very important one that now I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on for a while here, right? So, we spoke last week essentially about the potential for seeing big sell-offs here on crypto, right? So pretty awesome to just see that pretty much play out instantly there, right? One of our main
Looking at
reasons
this weekly time
was
frame
this
here,
institutional
there's a
candle.
real chance that we might have topped out. And I was just noticing seeing this beautiful weekly institutional candle right here inside of the highs. We can see that we had, this trap candle here on the weekly, and then we go ahead, we take the high of both of those, and then we start to sell off, right? Now we haven't actually tested back into this level. So I do think at some point, I mean, it could be that we just drop off, but I do think at some point we will most likely get up into there and then, potentially get the
I would
next
have
push to
loved
the
that.
downside, right? So we first started the white, perfectly got up to 80 and we first started the Wyckoff Sundays, all the way down here, right? Back at like 60K, right? A little bit under 55, 50 could end up being areas where we look to, again, buy this and continue to buy it longer term.
So yeah, so again, pretty much exactly what we were expecting, other than, we didn't really get the retracement, right? We could see that this beautiful weekly candle here was definitely the sign that we could be seeing actually bigger moves to the downside here on BTC. Again, like trap candle right before an institutional candle is pretty clear, not clear necessarily, but it's pretty, high, like it's higher likelihood that we're going to see that redistribution happen, right? So I think that's really what happened here, right? As we spoke about last week as well, there's this big wick here with very high volume here on BTC, right? So high volume wick here on BTC, right? Obviously, we were kind of calling out buys for a while. We were thinking that price could reach around 80K, and then boom, right? We literally tapped into 80K and dumped. So really cool to see. I mean, the entire narrative that we spoke on, right? To see us reach at least 80 and then, from there continue to go down. But yeah, quite the significant push down from NFP there. And again, I think that the weekly candle was really the first indication that we could be seeing BTC head towards those levels. So yeah, we're definitely in an interesting zone that we're coming into now for the cryptos. So we're going to speak about that as well in a little bit. All right, cool. So I think that's good for, reviews of last week. Again, like very clean moves, I would say, as a whole, right? BTC, unfortunately, not giving us that retracement, but this would have been, huge, for that. But yeah, there were some, like basically decent zones that we maybe could have looked at, if we had like, again, this, if we had in mind that this sweep to the upside here maybe could hold, right? But I feel like other than that, there wasn't really too much here for last week, right? You would have had to have positioned the week before over here, right? And maybe even, to be honest, here a couple weeks ago probably would have been best, right? We could see these once again, like just the fast pushes up and the fast engulfments down, are obviously exactly what we want to see for this kind of price action. So there was definitely like a type 3 type of setup here when we look at how BTC really reacted. Again, the bigger time frame being that weekly institutional candle, right? And then after that, when we go to the smaller time frames, we can see how, it's not like on the weekly, it's like, okay, yeah, we just came up and then came right back down, right? But when we go to those lower time frames, very similar to the last example we were talking about, right? We end up seeing this structure here, right? Seeing the market create the high, new low, right? Create the high, new low, create the high, new low. I mean, it makes it much more clear that there is some potential for, again, BTC to drop. So pretty cool to see that, right? And then ETH, same thing as well. Just absolutely dumped to the downside here, and we're at about 1,500 now, which is pretty cool to see. Pretty cool to see. So yeah, we'll talk about this in a little bit. Cool. So now let's talk about what we can see happen, for the coming week, right? So post NFP, what can we potentially see, right? So firstly, I mean, I think it's just about following the order flow that we're seeing now, right? We have a long-term target on dollar, which is at about 102.0, pretty much just 102 flat, to be honest. So right around here is going to be our long-term target for dollar, right? We want to see this accumulation here obviously be done and, essentially reach us up towards the high of the previous, of the accumulation as a whole, right? And I would say this is really the high of the accumulation. So we should be reaching at minimum there. If we distribute after that, cool, maybe that can happen. But as of right now, the evidence just points to dollar continuing to go to the upside, right? So let's go ahead and tap into where we can see this. And, for me, we obviously have this accumulation that happened here, and then we have another reaccumulation that happened right down here, right? So for me, what we want to do is, follow those manipulations, right? So this is obviously going to be the extreme low that creates the current high that we're a part of. So simply put, guys, we're literally just going to want to see a retracement, right? See a rebalancing, move here, right? Because obviously we could see that NFP move very quickly, but it left behind a lot of imbalance in these zones, right? So either one, we end up, again, just refilling that imbalance and then simply just continuing to go higher, or two, right? Maybe we end up sweeping some of these internal lows from last week, right? And then, eventually seeing that continue to the upside. But we would definitely want to see, I would say, this hold, right? That's how we're going to want to think about this now, right? So the same way that we were thinking over here, okay, yeah, this is probably a bottom. I would say that this is most likely a bottom as well. And we just want to try and follow that to the upside, right? So I'd really make two main attempts at this week. Would be one, when we end up getting a rebalancing move down, right? To see if we can end up getting some good institutional candles, some good, reaccumulations down in here to give us, another push higher, right? So ideally, inside of this imbalance here would be kind of our first zone. And then if not here, right, for a continuation play, then we're going to be looking for maybe more of a higher time frame retracement to reach back into this candle and then continuing to go higher. Those are really the two main ways that I could see this happen. And again, now we're really starting to see the market trend the way that we like, right? So, if we have this long-term goal up here at around 102, right, then we're just going to continue to buy until we hit that, right? And that's what's really good about, having a long-term goal the way that we have there with a dollar. I think that's a clear target to go ahead and break a lot of these highs, especially because, we're inside of what's most likely a higher time frame accumulation, right? So it is pretty likely that, again, we just continue to do that same order flow to the upside, right? I feel like that's the most likely scenario. I think that's what's going to end up happening, right? Personally, for me, this distribution, yes, is here to the left, but even though the distribution is here to the left, we had a pretty nice accumulation there, and we had a beautiful reaccumulation after breaking the highs. For me, I think it's a lot harder to be in buys right now, and I think that that's the side that we want to follow and continue to try and find opportunities for as the week goes on and as the next couple of weeks go on as a whole, right? So beautiful move up on dollar. For me, that really confirms this reaccumulation. And so now we're going to use that reaccumulation to continue to find the order flow to the upside there on dollar, right? So could see potentially the same thing happening again across the board on a lot of these currencies, right? So maybe this trap candle here on the daily, right, we can end up seeing get filled there, right? And then that obviously would align with, filling imbalance. It's like even higher here on Euro USD, right? Maybe up in that level. So getting back up to like 1.16, I think, to just continue the order flow makes the most sense, right? With Euro USD, our long-term target is right down here at 1.1390, right? That's what we've been saying for a while. Why are we saying that? Because again, we have the low of the distribution that we have not yet taken, right? So I don't think that this is a reaccumulation move here. I think that we still need to get a little bit lower than those lows so that we can really create a real reaccumulation down in these levels, or maybe even lower for this, right? But all I know is that we've had this drives to the upside. We have this low, right, the sow, and we never really got lower than that, right? So normally if we're going to reaccumulate, we're going to see price sweep the low of that, but we never got that move. So again, that's why I think this is a pretty clear target, right, to go ahead and target the low of the distribution for Euro USD, right? GU, right, obviously similar idea, right? We should definitely target this current low here, right? And we'll see what happens here. I mean, with this, obviously with this move here on GU, this is an accumulation down here, but it did turn into a distribution there. And, again, we've had a second redistribution there. This is what we spoke about as well, by the way, on Wyckoff Sundays last week, was this daily up candle here on GU. The way how we had like all these relatively equal highs, institutional candle, push back to the downside, right? We were looking for that to be the continuation, and we can obviously see price retrace back into there really nicely. Definitely made it difficult to hold on to with all these wicks, but nevertheless, definitely respected that high to give that next push to the downside. So I think this can most likely continue. And again, if this is a true redistribution, then this should be the target longer term, right? To break the low of the accumulation, right? That brought us up there, right? But definitely, obviously, our first danger zone is going to be in this extreme area here. So that's going to be our first target, I would say, right? Is going to be for GU at about 1.325, right? That should give us, a clear place to see price head to for GU. And again, guys, just treating pullbacks as opportunities to short, I would say, is what we're going to be doing, for the currencies, right? And you in a bit of a different place, right? We had this high get created here, big buy to the upside and huge sell off back down. We're already below the previous point of distribution. So for me, NU is probably going to be one that I'm going to like to use a little bit less. But obviously we do have this gap here that we still haven't filled. So we should definitely reach down towards that gap at 0.5759 or 60 basically would be the idea. Right, so still really good, potential area for price to continue to sell into, right, across the board there. We'll take a look at UCAD, right, UCAD. Again, we have a redistribution up here, so we're definitely going to be targeting this level, for this, right? So at least up until here should be where we should get UCAD heading to, right? So I wouldn't really be looking for too many sells for any of these until we kind of reach some of these higher time frame zones. We have USDCHF as well, right? We see this trend line to the downside here. I mean, we should go there, right? I mean, for me, like we had a beautiful reaccumulation here. Not reaccumulation, sorry, just an accumulation breaking the low, right? Pushing back to the upside, right? And we kind of attacked this first point of liquidity, which is great, but we do still have more, I would say, right? We'll see how this plays out, but out of anything, I think I like USD Chef a little bit less. Just given the fact that, again, this is a really good liquidity point, really fast push to the upside. If there were going to be one that we were going to look for dollar to sell on, USDCHF would probably be the best one if we wanted to see this distribution hold. But for me, I don't think it's likely that it holds. But out of everything, USDCHF probably looks like the best setup comparatively, right? But for me, guys, again, my bias is going to be dollar longs until we reach our goals there, right? UJ has now completely engulfed to the upside, which is awesome. Again, just big buys up, right, after having seen this sweep here at the bottom, right? Once again, guys, I mean, high volume low here, right? Super high volume low, right? Price sweeps that once, price sweeps that twice, right? Before end up giving that as the bottom, and then, from there it just flows to the upside. So I think UJ has been very clean as well for potential day trades. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much that for currencies. All right, let's go ahead and tap into metals. So gold and silver are in very interesting places, right? For me, I wanted to see this zone here hold to before we went ahead and longed this further, right, to a new high potentially. But so far, this distribution has really not turned into a clear accumulation, right? We wanted to see this zone here hold this institutional candle. We definitely had, like we said before, great reactions from those levels, but not anything long term. And every single time we would buy up, we would be met with a manipulation move here, and one up there as well, right, with that trap candle. So yeah, for me, I mean, right now, obviously the momentum is bearish, to the downside, and we're going to delete this here because now we've also broken a very significant level, right? This is the low that went ahead and created the high, right? We were kind of expecting price to just retrace into there and then continue to buy up. But obviously we could see that that didn't happen. Price just came back into that level, consolidated a lot, to be honest. I mean, we were really in this zone for a long time. And then until finally we broke through, right? So we'll see what can happen for this coming week. For me, I kind of want to take a more of a wait and see approach when it comes to gold, given the fact that again we've broken through the significant level. Because now we have to really again obviously look at the fact that okay, now we've broken order flow, right? We have the distribution that happened here, right? This could be that this distribution is part of a redistribution for this as a whole, right? So this being an accumulation, this being a distribution, right, which would make it a redistribution. And then, if that's the case, then, again, we could be seeing gold head down towards 4,100, right? Personally, I didn't want to see that, right? I've spoken about this many times on Wyckoff Sundays. I did want to see the market continue to buy up, even with the way that we kind of, were slowly getting back into that level. I really thought that we could end up seeing that hold, right? But obviously, we're just speculating here with a lot of this stuff, right? In terms of where we can see reactions and stuff. There are obviously, key logical places that make sense, like obviously this being manipulation that broke into a new high and everything. But that being said, obviously if the longer term move is going to be bearish and that's going to be the reversal of trend, then that's what we have to follow, right? So but like I said, for now, I'm kind of, like I said, taking a wait and see approach on gold. If we do end up seeing some good lower time frame manipulations like at the beginning of this week, maybe we could end up seeing this push to the downside engulf. But personally, for me, I'd probably rather actually get the confirmation now that because we've broken here and get an engulfment and then go ahead and look for a retracement inside of that, right? Because it could be, right? We do have a really big wick here, right? Price having a really nice down candle below that wick. It could be that this is an institutional candle. It's just not confirmed right now, right? If we could really see that engulf and then we could get a mitigation phase, like I said, I think that could be probably the best case scenario for longs to continue to happen. If not, it's possible gold is going to head down, right? We just going to have to see how price action happens in this new week. I think this new week price action is going to be really key. For silver, right, this is kind of what we had been saying for silver, is that it was likely that this low wouldn't hold, and that we would probably end up sweeping through these, right, these big wicks and stuff, sweep through this low, and it looks like that's exactly what happened. So again, if we get the same kind of thing, right, it's definitely possible for this to be an institutional candle, right? But if we don't get a big engulfment up, if we don't get the retracement and all that, then again, it's not really going to be a good setup, I would say, for us to necessarily take advantage of now that we've broken through the order flow that we were speaking about for a while on gold, right? So only time will tell. If it ends up being a sweep, great. We'll be able to follow up later on in the week. If not, we got to obviously keep in the possibility that we could be heading towards $60 here for silver and 4,100 for gold, right? If this is truly going to be a redistribution scenario where this accumulation turns into a distribution, right? Like I said, I was a little bit skeptical of that, right? I can't deny that breaking this was not great for the idea that, this might be an accumulation that will be respected. But again, if this ends up being an institutional candle, it could be that we were just manipulating some internal liquidity before then starting to head to the upside. So we got to obviously still kind of be able to look at both sides like that, flow with it, and see what ends up happening during the week that can give us more evidence for one direction or the other, right? So yeah, that's metals there. Okay, indices as well. Really interesting sell-offs last week, guys. We could see here on US 30, right? We had this big buy up, for the majority of the week, right? I believe since the beginning of the week we had been buying. And then when NFP hit, we could see that this daily up candle just completely engulfed to the downside, right? When we look at S&P 500, huge sell-off down, beautiful institutional candle here at the top. Trap candle there, and then big push down, right? S&P 500, right? We end up having a beautiful trap candle get created, right? With this push to the upside here first, right? So we're starting to actually get some interesting bigger time frame candles. Out of all of them, I do like US 30s the most because this is a really good institutional candle here, right? S&P has got a really nice trap candle with that push to the downside too, but it's still a little bit farther. And then same thing with NAS, right? So I do think that there could be a chance to see, potentially, can we get, things like US 30 to sell off to the downside, right? Maybe we can go ahead and target this level here at 5,200 or so to go ahead and do that, right? So seeing kind of like a retracement back to the upside, right? To then go ahead and head towards this level here. I actually think is much more likely in comparison to the way it was before. Last week when we looked at indices, there was no indication that we could really get sell-offs on any time frame. But now, I mean, honestly, the daily candle looks good there to me, right? Daily candles look good there to me as well, right? So unless we just have price, again, like with S&P, like create that push down and then completely engulf, then we could be seeing some potential for sells here, right? So what we would want to see would be price slowly getting back up into that level, right? To then go ahead and give us the sell off to the downside. But personally, I think I'd probably use US 30, for this, right? I do like the daily institutional candle that's there a lot. So maybe at the beginning of this week, we can get something like that, right? Price retracing back up, right? And then giving us a sell off to the downside. So fingers crossed, y'all. Fingers crossed we can finally get a good setup here on the indices, okay? And now crypto, okay, guys? So crypto here is also looking pretty interesting. We finally have broken through this high volume low here. I'm not convinced that this is the end of it. We do have, again, high volume here, right? We also have high volume right here, right? That's lower than that previous volume, so that's good. We definitely have divergence inside of this low, but I think this might just be the first sweep, right? I think we could potentially still get a second one, right? To then continue to go to the upside. Here we have the reaccumulation from last time, and I do think that this push to the downside here might still be, a zone for price to reject from, right? So if we could go just a little bit lower, because we can see here that price didn't reach there, right? So I do think this is comparatively potentially a pretty good idea to see that come down. But again, we're gonna want to see price go down there, right? Create a institutional candle, right? And do that hopefully on lower volume, right? In comparison to these previous ones here, right? That would be the kind of setup that I'd like to see for BTC. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on BTC for sure, for this, right? So if we were going to look for dollar to potentially sell, right, perhaps BTC could be a good one to long from, being in such an extreme area. And then, if we look at things like gold and stuff, or sorry, not gold, I meant currency. If we look at things like currency and stuff, then I think this one could be better for seeing dollar continue to head to the upside, right? So depending on what kind of price action we get by the time we're on the charts again on Tuesday, we're going to be going one of those two routes, right? Like I said, right? Either one, going through currency and longing dollar, or two, probably going through crypto and shorting it if that's the case, right? If it ends up being more of a long scenario, then yeah, BTC might go even a little bit lower, into it, right? Maybe even like 43 or so could be the case, right? Could be the case. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much that from me. All right, we pretty much reviewed every single piece here, and we've seen what we could potentially have going on into the future. So just mark up those higher time frame targets that we spoke about for each of these pairs on your charts. See where price ends up going. If we do end up reaching towards those levels, then I think that we can all end up catching some really good moves on the way up. Now that it does look like the market is trending very nicely again, right? Like we were saying before, there's been a lot of consolidation here. I think now we're really starting to reach into that expansion mode, and this is where we really like to be in as traders. These are the kind of market conditions that we want to be in. So we'll see how it goes, guys. All right. Hopefully this new week can be great for each and every one of us, and I will catch you guys on the next one. All right. Much love, much appreciation. Peace out. Deuces.